Okay, carrying on with the A to Z of HTML, we're going to go from K to Q today and try and get as many done as possible. Now, there's different ways of formatting text. I showed you italic, strong, bold, code, whatever. Okay, there is another one. I've just typed in some text here. This is keyboard text. If you want to make it look like typewriter text, you can do by doing this, which is KBD, which is short for keyboard. Okay, and if you just then close that and refresh it, you'll notice it looks like a keyboard text. Okay, it's a fixed width font. Okay, and basically it just defines it to make it look like somebody's tapped out a keyboard. Say for instance you want to do a website that makes it look like somebody's writing a script or something. That's the kind of text that they use in scripts, and you can probably use it accordingly. Okay, I'm just going to put that inside a paragraph so we can go down to the next one. Let's go down. The next one we can do is what's known as a label. Now a label tends to be defined using the forms. Remember we did forms the other day? Say for instance you create a text field, okay, and we put in the name, input something, okay, input, yeah, let's just keep it like that. Alright, what you can also do is create what's known as a label. If I just refresh that, you'll notice it comes up with a block there. Say for instance you want something in front of that. You type in label and basically give it a name. This is the label, like so, and close that. Okay, what happens is it basically puts in the label in front of the input field. Okay, it doesn't do any alteration with the paragraphing and things like that. It basically puts them next to each other. Okay, that's one thing you can do with a label. The next one on the list, I'm just going to put a break in there this time. Go down one. Next one on the list is what's known as a legend. If you remember, what we did before is we created a form. I won't do it. Just called form. Okay. And do you remember I put in a field in there? There's the label. This is the other label. Like so. Like so. Right. What we can do is, as I said before, select that. We can give it what's known as, if we scroll down here, a field set. Okay, but also it has something called a legend. Okay, there's no legend listed there, but basically if you click on field set, it says legend there, you see. So this is a form, for instance. Press OK. What you'll notice then is it actually puts in field set and legend as part of the makeup of the form. Okay. Fortunately, what you have to do is to put all this inside the form. So I have to get that, move that there, get those two things, and move them there. Okay, once I've done that, you'll notice it's nothing. This is a form. Okay, so save that. What I'm going to do is just quickly show you what that looks like inside Safari. And you'll notice it actually puts it, this is a form, as a kind of a heading for the actual form area. This can be quite useful. You'll notice on the actual HTML it doesn't display it that way. It's because it's actually got it as a legend. It actually then knows how to format it and define it. Okay, I'm going to go down again, put P, let's close that P quickly. Our next one on the list is LI. Now LI comes as part of the listing option. What you have to do first is to define it as a list, and the way you do that is you can either do it as a DL or a UL. Okay, like that. So let me just put it correctly. If I just then make it as a closed one, what we can do then is put what's known as LIs in, which is the list information. object 1, so. We go on to the next line. Let's just call that object. I don't want to do too many. Object 2, so. Now what that does is it defines this as a list. Okay, I'll just save that and refresh it. What you'll notice is it automatically then puts a bullet point in and puts them down in a list, and it actually tabulates them in slightly. Obviously what you can do in CSS is to style all this. You don't have to worry too much. Actually, if I get rid of the P on that, it should format it a little bit better, because you'll notice it's actually come away from the form above. Anyway, it basically pushes it in a little bit, and this is the list, and you can obviously give it a class and IDs and things like that. Okay, so that's a LI. Right. Next is a link. Right, there's lots of different kinds of links. You'll notice it says down here link. Okay, if you're trying to find a picture, for instance, you can create a link. But the actual link term is something that's associated with the header section. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to add a CSS file to this. I click on this button here, and it says there I've got a link for, and it says link. I press OK. What you'll notice that happens is it literally brings in this term link, and it gives you the referencing for the actual style sheet. Okay. And that's basically how you define a link. The other type of link is the one we normally know, which is a href. Without this, it's basically an A. That's a link, but it's not used in the term link. We talked about a href linking when we were covering A to B. Okay, so that's the other form, link. You can do this for other things such as JavaScript as well. Okay. Now, next on the list, I'm going to have to put in a image. So I'm just going to quickly put in an image. Where's the image? Image. So I'm going to find an image to input. I'll find the one I did yesterday, which is the easiest one to do. Okay, press OK. Let's give it text, image. Okay. Now, once you've got an image in place, you may want to make it so that there's an active link on part of the image and not all of the image. Okay, say for instance, when they click on juice, you want them to go somewhere. Maybe talk about juice or something. Okay, the way you do this is if you click on your image so it's active, you'll notice at the bottom here it says map, okay, which is what we're talking about, and then it gives you tools to create a map. Luckily this is kind of like a rectangle shape, so I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. It will come up with an error when I start drawing this saying it's for disabled people. Okay, impaired people, use the tool for web. Okay, so basically press OK. Now you've defined a image map. You'll notice it says map, and I've called it map. I can actually change this. I can call it juice map or something. Okay, and it updates everything. And then we put our link in here. Let's say we go to juice.com. Okay, for instance, don't forget, teaching you bad habits, make sure it's got HTTP. Okay, so when I now, if I save that, go to my example, I've got my picture, and you'll notice the cursor changes when I go over juice because it's an active link, and you notice at the bottom it actually says juice.com. Okay, that is how you then define an image map. Now, the next one, we're talking about M. Up here, I've already talked about it slightly, this term metadata. What we can do is if I want to add things to my web page about titles, keywords, etc., etc., I can add what's known as metadata. This is invisible to the actual design of the page, but it basically gives extra information that the actual server and web browser can accept, and things like Google as well, if they're looking for keywords, for instance. You can find this under trying to think which one's under. I think it's maybe under common actually, right at the end. Yeah, it's under the head section under common. If you click on it, it has meta there. It also has keywords, which is a meta, and so is description, and so is that, and so is that, and so is that. Okay, I'm just going to click on meta. And what it does is it gives you a chance to then give you alternatives. And if I say name, let's say it's A to Z website, for instance. Yeah. And just type in, for instance, this is a website for the A to Z of websites of HTML. Okay. Press OK. What happens is it puts in the meta name option and then puts the content in. I'll do another one to show you the different types of meta. Keywords. Yeah, what you do with keywords is just put HTML, web, anything that's relevant to your website, my name for instance. One thing you have to realise is if you have a word that's got two words, you want to split it up as well. Okay, and if you're doing foreign language ones, you have to do every variation of every keyword in both or more languages, all in the same language option. Say for instance this is the English site, you do it all German, Greek, French, whatever, all in the keywords of one page. Okay. Tutorial. And what that does is basically puts a list up inside your meta area, okay, and your search engines will look for this as a relevance to put in their search results. Okay, so there's lots of different types of meta. Alright, it doesn't become apparent on your page, but it is useful to have it and be aware of what it does. Okay. Next, we've got something called object. Okay. If I start typing object, okay, what this is it's basically something that you may want to add to your web page, like a QuickTime movie, for instance. I don't want to go into the actual complexity of it, but you'll notice, for instance, it's got class ID there. If you click on that, what we can do, I don't think it's going to let me do this, but you'd have to, there is a certain code that you can use for making. Let's see if we can find a quick movie. That's quite an interesting one. Yeah, air traffic control. Alright, so I'm just going to choose that. Let's see if it lets me. No, possible. Just choose that. Yes. Put it on my desktop. So, okay. It shouldn't actually do that. And what it's doing is it's putting my thing in there. What I'm going to do is actually show you how it should structure it using the example from the object tag. Okay, basically this is the class ID, and this is the actual classification ID for, let's say for instance, a QuickTime movie. You can find this information on the internet. Then what you have to do is develop the parameters, okay, which is another thing we need to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to go back again, because that's not going to work, what I've done, because it shouldn't be a file, it should be an actual class ID, okay, for a web design, I mean movie for instance. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to close it. Okay, what you then do is you set up the next set of options, which is called parameters. Okay, like so, and you can call it whatever you want to. You can draw all these options up. Okay, like for instance value, and then say for instance you want border. Yeah, yeah. Say set that. Close that. Yeah, that's all you need to do basically, and it's just setting up a parameter for this actual object. You need to search for this because you probably won't use it a lot, but if you want to embed QuickTime movies, for instance, you'll need to know about this. Okay, instead of using the flash method, this is another way of doing it. Alright, I'm just going to move on. Let's just refresh. That's going to create an error. Okay, so that's not going to show anything actually. Okay, the next thing we need to do is OL. Okay, So I'm just going to click on OL. This is again another type of list. So I'll just type in the LI again. This option. So close it. And then another one is to do too. Option. Close it. And then close the OL. Save that. And what this does is it basically gives you a list with numeric. So it's so what it's doing is it's actually giving you an ordered list, and what it stands for OL is ordered list. Okay, and that's why it's giving you 1, 2, etc., etc. You can change those if you want to be Roman numerals, whatever. Okay, and you'll notice here it says ordered list, and this one's the unordered list, which means it just gives you bullet points. Okay, that's the UL that we talked about earlier. Now I'm going to go to down again. Now you may want to have a thing on your website that gives you your users an option to choose certain things, whether it's a jump menu or whether it's a form that they have to fill in and they have to give specific results, like a date or their birth year or something like that. What you can do is obviously then create something called an option function. And this comes under, which is something we're going to talk about later, the select parameter inside. Let's close that. Okay, inside a form. That's why it's gone orange. Okay. Now what we do is we can now put in option, like so, and we can then define it by giving it some value. Let's just say male. I'll do that as an easy one. Close it. And then do another one, option, and obviously the female, close it, and I'll do one more, option, and we'll say no answer, something, you never know. Okay, and that's defining an option pull down menu, selection option. Okay, and I'll just refresh that. It appears like this. Okay, now what you can do actually is indicate, which is the initial starting point, and you notice that's going to be there, so let's choose no answer to start with. I'll save that and show you what it looks like on the internet. Go down, you'll notice there's the no answer starting off, and it gives you the choice to choose whichever one you want. So these are your options. Okay, now if you want to, you can define a greater aspect to this, and I'll show you how to do that. What I'm going to do is just select that to make life easier and quicker. So I'm going to do that. Say for instance you want to do, yeah, let's say cars. Okay. What we can do here is we can set something called an option group. Yeah, like so. And I'll close that, and I'll say German cars, like so. Yeah, and what we can do here is we can say BMW, the German Mercedes, okay, so forth. And then what we can do then, get rid of that. Say for instance we want to then do that, and say English cars. Okay, so we can have something like Rover, Bent, and Rolls Royce. Right, so what this does, well, let's choose that as the starting point. Okay, say BMW. Save it, go to our web page. What we have is another selection, but you'll notice it has it in groups now. Okay, like so. And obviously you can style these if you want to. Okay, but you notice it's it hasn't actually listed them as options. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. Alright. What this is doing is actually defining it out of context, what you need to do is to group the whole section under that. So we go down to there, define that, and then have that as the label for this section. So go there, press equals, so let's see. And it says selected. Right, we'll do the same for this group. So you pull it down to the bottom, like so, and we just put in label equals English cars. If I now do that and save it, what we'll find is when we go to the web again, do that, you'll notice it actually has it as a label, so you can actually see what the different areas are. Okay, so that's your options for labeling and option groups inside pull down menus, the selection menus. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is move on quickly before I say something stupid. Close that, and we've talked about parameters. Now, one thing you may notice when you're typing, so for instance you're typing in your code view, this is some text and I want to do this with formatting and allow for the format to remain like this. Okay, now you see what I've done here is I've typed in some text and it looks like how I want it to display. Allow, better English. Okay, what I want to do is put this in and I want it to be as it is in the code view, but if I go to here you'll notice it just ends up one big long line, okay, which is not what we want. So what we can do is use this term called pre, like so, and if I just close this here, pre, okay, what happens is if I then do that, it retains the styling of the text. You'll notice it's almost exactly the same as I've actually typed it in there. If obviously you get rid of the coding here, this is actually allowing for the fact that we've got some tabulation here. I bet if I just get rid of that tabulation, we can do that and it will all be lined up. So this is one way to keep your text looking the way it is, and obviously you can then style the pre to have better text than this code text, okay, inside CSS. It just makes life a lot nicer and easier when you're actually developing all this kind of stuff, because you forget to do a break line, or it's not block text you want, okay, it's set in a certain format. This is the way you do it, okay. The last one we're going to talk about in this section, just making the P quickly, and this is, if you want to, this is some text and I want to quote some instead of actually typing this is a quote like so, let's close the P, which it does actually come up as that. You may want to do it so that this is coded in, okay, and what you can do is just type in the word letter Q like so, get rid of that, because you may have some errors with this quotation thing. It may not set it up the best way possible, and you want to just make it so you can just change it accordingly. So do that. You notice what happens is nothing appears there, but when we go to web browser, it puts in the quotes, okay. So that's one way of making it so it always quotes things even if there's an issue with the actual quote marks that you define in your code view. Okay, that's basically it for this section. The next section will be the last one, goes all the way down to X. Okay, so more later.